Our moon hides a secret world of bewildering structures and impossible lights. We are about to journey through 25 of the most baffling lunar anomalies ever recorded. These are not just tricks of the light, they are strange objects and unexplained phenomena that challenge everything we think we know about our celestial neighbor. You will see the evidence for towering spires, massive geometric shapes, and fleeting events that have puzzled professional scientists and amateur sky watchers for decades. By the end, you will have a complete picture of the moon's greatest unsolved mysteries. What could have built a mile-high shard of glass-like material on the airless surface? Why do some craters seem to vanish without a trace? What is the true nature of the moon? How many of its secrets are still waiting in the silent darkness? Rising from the desolate plain of the moon is a structure that defies easy explanation. This is the shard, our first and perhaps most visually stunning anomaly. It was captured in a series of photographs by the Lunar Orbiter spacecraft, a solitary spire stretching toward the blackness of space. Estimates place its height at over 1 mile, a scale that is almost incomprehensible when you consider the surrounding landscape. Its form is starkly geometric, featuring sharp angles and flat planes that seem carved or constructed, entirely unlike the weathered, irregular shapes of natural lunar geology. The debate around the shard is fierce. Skeptics argue it is nothing more than a clever interplay of light and shadow across a particularly jagged boulder. They say our minds are wired to see patterns and structures where none exist. Yet those who study the images closely point to undeniable details. The object casts a long, distinct shadow across the lunar soil, proving its physical presence and its considerable height. Its edges appear razor-sharp and unnaturally straight in multiple photographs, features that are incredibly difficult to explain through random geological processes on an airless world with no erosion. To truly grasp its strangeness, picture the original orbiter image side by side with computer-enhanced versions. These processed views remove much of the photographic noise, revealing the shard's bizarre architecture in greater clarity. Three-dimensional models built from the data show it not as a simple slope, but as a towering, complex structure. It stands as a silent sentinel on the moon, a monument to a mystery we have yet to solve. If this is not a natural formation, then what or who could have built it? Not far from the shard, in the central region known as Sinus Medii, two more structures challenge our understanding. The first is the tower, a colossal column that soars from the flat lunar plain. It stands as a stark, vertical spike against the horizon, a feature that appears too tall and too thin to be a simple mountain or a volcanic vent. Analysis of its shadow suggests a height that dwarfs the tallest skyscrapers on Earth, but the true mystery deepens with its neighbor, an anomaly called the castle. This object does not look like a single spire. Instead, it resembles the crumbling ruins of a vast, complex fortress. High-resolution images seem to reveal geometric patterns, what look like collapsed walls, and even hints of interconnected rooms and passageways. The close proximity of the tower and the castle is what fuels the most intense speculation. They are not isolated oddities. They appear to be part of a larger, interconnected complex, a silent cityscape frozen in time. Researchers, including the controversial figure Richard Hoagland, have spent years analyzing the original orbiter photographs. They point to side-by-side comparisons with detailed diagrams that trace out the structure's forms. These overlays highlight sharp, 90-degree angles, repeating rectangular patterns, and a general layout that seems far more organized than any known natural process could create. The theory proposed is that we are looking at the skeletal remains of gigantic, alien-built edifices, their original purposes lost to unimaginable eons. The very airlessness of the moon has preserved these ruins, leaving them untouched by wind or rain, waiting for us to finally recognize them for what they might be. What kind of civilization could have built on such an epic scale, and what cataclysm left their works in such a state of magnificent decay? Far to the north, in the region of the Moon's Mare Crisium, another set of impossible structures was found. The Blair Cuspids are not a single object, but a collection of 7 distinct spires. They stand in a stark, geometric arrangement on the flat lunar plane, like a set of giant needles deliberately placed in a specific pattern. Lunar Orbiter 2 captured them from above, and the shadows they cast are the key to their mystery. Analysis of those long, dark lines reveals each spire is astonishingly tall and remarkably slender, with some estimated to be as high as a 200-story building. Their formation is what truly baffles the mind. They are not scattered randomly. They appear to be positioned with a mathematical precision that echoes ancient earthly monuments, a deliberate layout that nature rarely, if ever, produces on its own. Then there is the Lunar Bridge, an arch of staggering proportions. It spans a small crater like a colossal, sculpted gateway. The structure appears perfectly symmetrical, a smooth, curved form that connects 2 points across a void. Its shape is so clean and its lines so deliberate that it looks engineered, not eroded. To prove this is not a simple trick of the light, imagine a computer animation showing the sun moving slowly across the lunar sky. As the angle of illumination changes, the bridge maintains its solid, 3-dimensional form. Its shadow shifts predictably underneath it, confirming it is a massive, freestanding arch of solid material, an architectural marvel suspended in the vacuum of space. Perhaps the most iconic of all these structural anomalies is the obelisk. This is a towering, rectangular monolith that stands utterly alone on a vast, featureless plain. Its sides are unnaturally smooth and parallel, culminating in a flat top. When the sun is low on the horizon, it casts a long, sharp, and perfectly defined shadow across the gray soil, a shadow that is impossible to ignore. It looks exactly like the fictional monolith from 2001, A Space Odyssey, a silent, black slab that seems to demand attention. The sheer geometry of the obelisk defies the chaotic nature of asteroid impacts and volcanic activity. These are not weathered mountains or collapsed crater walls. They are precise, angular, and intelligently designed structures that stand as permanent challenges to our understanding of a dead world. What force of nature aligns 7 perfect spires, sculpts a perfect arch, and carves a solitary, mile-high obelisk with such flawless geometry? While these silent structures suggest a lunar past frozen in time, other anomalies are anything but static. There exists a recording of something moving across the moon, a vast and shadowy wave that temporarily alters the very face of the landscape. This is the Lunar Wave, a phenomenon captured on video that shows a dark, rippling curtain sweeping over craters and hills. It moves with a slow, deliberate grace, momentarily darkening the terrain before passing on, leaving the original surface unchanged. The scale is staggering. This wave is hundreds of miles across, a transient event on a world we considered geologically dead. The original footage, when slowed down, reveals the wave's true nature. It does not blot out features like a simple shadow. Instead, it glides over the topography, flowing up and down the sides of craters and mountains, conforming to the land in a way a shadow cast from space simply could not. This is not a trick of the camera or a cloud passing in front of the lens. Earth's atmosphere cannot produce such a precise, localized effect on the lunar surface. So what could cause such a bizarre event? One leading theory proposes a massive, sudden release of subsurface gas. The idea is that a giant bubble of trapped volatile compounds burst from below, creating a temporary, dense atmosphere that refracted sunlight, creating a mirage-like wave of darkness. Yet, the energy required for such a planet-wide gas release is almost unimaginable. Other, more exotic explanations venture into far stranger territory. Could this have been some form of cloaking technology, a brief malfunction in a shield that hides something beneath the lunar soil? Or was it a holographic projection of immense scale, a flicker in a display we cannot comprehend? The fact that it was filmed makes it profoundly unsettling. We are not looking at a still photograph open to interpretation. We are watching the moon change before our eyes and then change back, leaving us with one of the most dynamic and eerie mysteries in the cosmos. A single, needle-like structure pierces the lunar sky, a stark contradiction to the softly rounded hills that surround it. This is the lunar spire, an anomaly captured with stunning clarity by the Apollo 10 mission. It stands impossibly tall and thin, a solitary spike that seems more like a communication tower than a piece of geology. The way it catches the sunlight is equally bizarre. Its surface flashes with a brilliant specular reflection, the kind you would expect from polished metal or glass, not from the dull, dusty regolith that blankets the moon. Official accounts from the time dismissed it as a simple rock outcrop, a trick of perspective and lighting. Yet a closer analysis of the photograph reveals details that this simple explanation cannot contain. The spire's profile is razor-thin from every angle, and calculations based on its long, sharp shadow suggest an aspect ratio that defies nature. Imagine a skyscraper built on Earth, then scale it up to a terrifying height and make it stand alone without any supporting structure. Natural rock formations, especially on a world with no atmosphere to erode them, simply do not form into such perfectly slender, freestanding spikes. They collapse under their own weight or are shattered by impacts. High contrast enhancements of the image remove the glare and let us see its true form. It is a monolithic shard, a piece of impossible engineering that has stood for perhaps millions of years. How could a simple rock outcrop be so perfectly vertical, so brilliantly reflective, and so utterly alone in a landscape of gentle slopes and craters? This isn't just a rock, it is a monument to a mystery we have only begun to unravel. Deep within the crater Tycho, a formation so perfect it seems to have been carved by design, not chance. This is the Tycho Pyramid, a colossal tetrahedron resting on the lunar floor. Its faces appear unnaturally smooth, forming vast, dark triangles that meet at a distinct central peak. It does not have the rough, irregular profile of a mountain. Instead, it presents a stark, geometric silhouette against the crater's rugged interior, a shape that nature almost never produces on such a grand and flawless scale. Then, hundreds of miles away, another impossible shape awaits. On the surface near the crater Euclid lies a perfect equilateral triangle, formed from a patch of distinctly darker material. Each side is precisely the same length, and at its very center sits a single, brilliant white point of light, a bright spot that looks like it was placed there with pinpoint accuracy. The astronomical odds of these two perfect shapes forming naturally are vanishingly small. Craters are circular, lava flows create chaotic, lumpy plains. Nothing in the known geological repertoire of the moon explains a perfect tetrahedron or a flawless, dark triangle with a bright central beacon. To understand the sheer precision involved, picture a side-by-side comparison. On one side, we have the original lunar photograph. On the other, a computer-generated overlay of a perfect geometric shape, a transparent triangle or pyramid, is placed directly over the anomaly. The lines of the digital shape lock perfectly onto the edges of the lunar formation. The angles match exactly. The symmetry is absolute. This visual proof removes all doubt. We are not looking at pareidolia, our minds tricking us into seeing patterns. We are looking at measurable, mathematical perfection etched into the surface of another world. What natural process could possibly align matter into such clean, sharp, and intelligent forms, not once, but in two completely different locations? A strange, translucent dome rises from the flat expanse of the Mare Crisium. This is no ordinary volcanic mound. Its surface is unnaturally smooth, a perfect hemisphere of what appears to be glass or crystal, seemingly half buried in the lunar soil. The most baffling quality is its luminosity. Unlike the dull gray terrain around it, the dome seems to generate a faint internal glow, as if light is shining from within its structure. When the original black and white photographs are processed with enhanced color filters, the anomaly becomes even more pronounced. These filters, designed to highlight compositional differences, reveal the dome has a unique spectral signature. It does not reflect light like rock or dust. Instead, it behaves more like a giant lens, bending and scattering the sunlight in a way that suggests a material completely alien to the Moon's known geology. This stands in stark contrast to the Moon's known volcanic domes, which are rough, dark, and irregular blisters of hardened lava. The lunar dome is something else entirely. Its flawless curvature and apparent transparency have led to some extraordinary theories. Could this be the remnant of a pressurized habitat, a vast, transparent shelter that once housed some form of life, its interior now dark and silent? Perhaps it is a geological freak, a colossal bubble of gas that rose and cooled into a giant crystal ball, frozen for eons. Or maybe it functions as an enormous lens, a piece of astronomical architecture focused on the stars above. What purpose could such a structure serve, and what would we find if we could ever stand before its shimmering wall? The silent structures and shifting waves are not the only active phenomena on the Moon. For centuries, astronomers have documented strange, moving points of light dancing across its darkened plains. These are not the steady glow of reflected sunlight, but dynamic, unexplained illuminations that defy simple explanation. One of the most famous locations for this activity is the crater Aristarchus. Here, both professional observatories and amateur sky watchers have recorded brilliant, intermittent flashes. These are not mere specks. They have been described as pulsating glows that sometimes change color, flaring from white to red to blue before vanishing back into the void. The Apollo astronauts themselves witnessed these events firsthand. During the Apollo 11 mission, Mission Control in Houston radioed up a question. They asked if the crew was seeing any interesting transient phenomena, specifically pointing them toward Aristarchus. Astronaut Michael Collins confirmed it, reporting that the area was the most brightly illuminated spot on the Moon, glowing with an eerie internal light. Imagine hearing the crackle of the original mission audio, the astronaut's calm voice describing a brilliant flare where there should only be darkness. Another profound event is known as the Lunar Light Bridge. This was not a single point, but a chain of lights that appeared to form a glowing bridge across the dark floor of a crater. Observers watched as these individual points of light moved in a coordinated, linear fashion, maintaining their formation as they traveled a significant distance. To visualize this, an animation could trace their path, a slow, deliberate procession of unknown beacons across a stark, airless landscape. The official explanations often point to outgassing, where trapped radioactive gases like radon burst through the surface, releasing energy as light. Others suggest triboluminescence, where moonquakes or meteorite impacts cause rocks to grind together and emit flashes. Yet these theories struggle to explain the coordinated movement of multiple lights, their color changes, or their precise, repeated appearances in the same locations. This leads to more speculative ideas. Could these be the navigation lights of vehicles belonging to a non-human intelligence operating on or within the Moon? Or are they evidence of secret, advanced human bases, a concept that feels straight out of science fiction but persists in the shadows of these observations? The simple, unsettling fact remains. For hundreds of years, lights have been seen moving on a world with no air, no weather, and supposedly no life. They represent a dynamic, ongoing mystery, a signal in the darkness that we have yet to answer. The crater Gassendi holds a network of lines so straight and purposeful they seem to defy the chaos of impact geology. Inside its vast circular wall, a series of interconnected, linear features stretch for miles across the floor. These are not random cracks or fractures. They form clear geometric patterns with some lines meeting at distinct angles, creating the unmistakable impression of a planned system. When you compare historical telescope drawings to modern orbital imagery, these features remain constant, their artificial appearance only magnified by higher resolution. They look less like natural gullies and more like ancient roadways or the skeletal remains of colossal canals, etched into the lunar surface by an intelligence we have yet to comprehend. This theme of a changing moon continues with the strange case of Lynn crater. For over a century, astronomers argued about this feature. Early observers consistently described Lynn as a large, deep crater, easily visible through their telescopes. Then, in the 1860s, it seemed to vanish. Later observers could only find a small, bright patch where the prominent crater once stood. The debate raged, with some claiming the original observers were simply mistaken, while others insisted the lunar landscape itself had transformed. Modern probes have since shown Lynn as a small, young crater surrounded by a bright halo of ejecta. The leading theory is that the original observers might have been tricked by lighting conditions, yet the persistent reports of a dramatic change have never been fully laid to rest. A time-lapse sequence blending those old sketches with new photos creates a jarring effect. It presents a landscape that appears to shift, fueling the haunting possibility that the moon is not entirely dead but capable of subtle, surface-altering activity. Then there is the Alphonsus crater, a place that literally winks at us from the darkness. For centuries, this crater has been the source of intermittent flashes of light, earning it the nickname the blinking crater. These are not the faint, colored glows of Aristarchus, but sharp, brilliant flashes that appear and disappear in an instant. The recorded history of these events is long and well documented by reputable astronomers. The most compelling evidence comes from a time lapse of observations, where pinpoint flashes erupt at different locations across Alphonsus's floor, a chaotic light show against the eternal silence. The conventional explanation is once again outgassing. The idea is that pockets of gas trapped below the surface rupture violently, releasing a quick burst of energy visible as a flash. Yet this theory is stretched to its limit by the sheer frequency and localized nature of these events in Alphonsus. Why does this one crater blink so often while thousands of others remain perpetually dark? These three anomalies together, the geometric roads of Gassendi, the shifting form of Lynn, and the blinking lights of Alphonsus, form a powerful triad of evidence. They challenge the comforting idea of a static, geologically dead world, suggesting instead a moon that is, in its own mysterious way, still alive with subtle changes and energetic releases we are only beginning to catalogue. Etched onto the lunar surface is a symbol so familiar it feels out of place. This is the cross, a massive X-shaped structure captured in multiple high-resolution images. Its form is starkly precise, with two straight lines intersecting at a clean 90-degree angle. It stands in sharp contrast to the chaotic, crater-pocked regolith that surrounds it, an organized geometric signature on a canvas of random violence. The immediate, skeptical explanation is that we are seeing a simple trick of topography, the long shadow of two natural ridges that just happen to cross at the perfect moment of a low sun angle. Yet, a deeper investigation complicates this simple answer. Using advanced three-dimensional terrain models built from orbital laser altimetry data, researchers have analyzed the area from multiple angles. These virtual landscapes allow us to simulate the sun's position from any point in the lunar day. When we do this, the cross does not behave like a typical shadow. Its lines remain sharp and well-defined even as the simulated lighting changes, suggesting it is not just a dark void cast by ridges, but potentially a positive structure itself, a raised feature on the surface. Its prominent placement adds another layer of mystery. It is not tucked away in some obscure corner. It sits in a location that makes it highly visible from orbit, almost like a deliberate marker. Could this be a giant navigational beacon placed eons ago to guide something or someone across the lunar plains? The idea of a natural formation is comforting, but the evidence points towards something far more structured, a permanent signpost on a world we are only beginning to understand. These luminous patterns look like giant celestial brushstrokes painted across the moon's dark plains. Known as lunar swirls, formations like the famous Lunar Gamma are among the most beautiful and perplexing of all lunar anomalies. They are not hills or valleys. Instead, they are bright, high albedo patterns etched directly into the surface soil, appearing as if a colossal artist swept a brush of brilliant white across the gray canvas. Their beauty is matched only by their strangeness, for they exist in a place where nothing should stay so pristine. The lunar environment is constantly bombarded by solar radiation and micrometeorites, a process called space weathering that steadily darkens the soil over time. Yet these swirls have remained brilliantly white for millions of years, defying this cosmic fading. The key to their mystery appears to be magnetism. Detailed orbital maps reveal that each major swirl is co-located with a powerful, localized magnetic field. These are not the moon's weak global magnetic fields, but intense, focused bubbles of magnetism that arch over the swirls like invisible shields. The leading scientific theory suggests a fantastic origin story. A comet composed of ice and dust may have slammed into the moon at a shallow angle. Upon impact, the comet's nucleus vaporized instantly, and its dusty debris fanned out across the surface. The immense heat and energy of the collision, the theory goes, could have magnetized the iron particles in the lunar soil right at the moment of impact, creating both the magnetic anomaly and the bright, disturbed pattern. This magnetic bubble then acts as a miniature shield, deflecting the solar wind and protecting the soil beneath from the darkening effects of space weathering. But this elegant theory has significant holes. Why do these magnetic fields remain so strong and localized over billions of years on a geologically dead world? And how does the magnetism so perfectly preserve the intricate, swirling details, preventing any dust from settling and dimming their brilliance? The unanswered questions have given rise to more speculative ideas. Some researchers propose the swirls are the surface evidence of vast, submerged technological structures, whose residual energy fields create these protective magnetic domes. Others wonder if they are the scars from an ancient energy weapon or the remnants of a giant power generator that left its imprint on the very rock. When you see a stunning orbital image of Lunar Gamma with a diagram of its magnetic field perfectly overlaid on the luminous swirl, the coincidence is too perfect to ignore. It looks intentional, it looks designed, whether the product of a freak comet impact or something far more profound. These luminous scars remain one of the moon's most dazzling and persistent riddles. These fleeting events are part of a much larger, century-spanning mystery known as transient lunar phenomena. The catalogue of TLP observations is vast, a chronicle of a moon that refuses to remain still. For hundreds of years, since the earliest days of the telescope, astronomers have meticulously recorded these temporary changes. They have noted sudden flashes of light, mysterious colorations shifting from red to violet, and strange, temporary obscurations where familiar features seem to blur or vanish entirely. One of the most persistent locations is the crater plateau, a vast, dark-floored plain that has repeatedly flared with a deep, crimson glow. These are not the reports of fringe observers. They come from the notebooks of some of the most respected figures in astronomy, who watched in fascination as the supposedly dead moon exhibited signs of life. The immense challenge in studying these events is their very nature. They are unpredictable and short-lived, often lasting only minutes or even seconds. By the time one astronomer calls another to verify a strange glow, it has usually faded back into the normal lunar grays. The proposed scientific causes are varied. Some events are likely the instantaneous flash of a meteorite impact. Others could be the result of moonquakes, the grinding of subsurface rock releasing pent-up energy as a brief spark of light. The most common explanation is outgassing, where trapped radioactive gases like radon find a weak spot in the crust and vent into the vacuum, potentially carrying dust that could temporarily obscure the surface or glow under the sun's radiation. Yet for every TLP that fits a neat scientific box, there is another that defies it. Why do these events cluster so heavily in specific craters like Aristarchus and Plato? How do we explain the coordinated movements of multiple lights or the vast, wave-like obscurations that sweep across hundreds of miles? No single theory of meteorites, quakes, or gas can account for the full, bewildering diversity in the TLP catalogue. The mystery is not denied by science, it is documented by it, a permanent puzzle written in the briefest flickers of light against the eternal dark. A recent discovery from the far side of the moon demonstrates just how powerful our desire to find structure can be. China's Yutu-2 rover, traversing the uncharted Von Karman crater, transmitted a grainy, low-resolution image that immediately set the internet ablaze. There, stark against the lunar horizon, was a perfect geometric shape. It looked like a massive, dark cube, its edges sharp and corners clearly defined against the stark sky. The object was so unnaturally square that it was quickly dubbed the giant cube. The excitement was palpable, with even NASA, a lunar reconnaissance orbiter team, jokingly labeling it a mystery hut in their own communications. The promise was intoxicating, a monolithic structure waiting on the hidden side of the moon. For weeks, the world watched as the slow-moving Yutu-2 rover undertook its painstaking journey to get a closer look. Each new image brought it nearer, the anticipation building with every centimeter traveled. Finally, the rover crested a small rise and brought the mystery hut into clear, high-resolution view. The reveal was for many a profound letdown. The giant cube was not a building or an artifact, it was a rock. More specifically, it was a peculiarly weathered stone that, from a distance and at a low angle, created a perfect illusion of a cube. To complete the almost poetic twist, its shape, now clearly visible, bore a whimsical resemblance to a crouching rabbit, a fitting image for the Jade Rabbit rover that found it. This entire episode serves as a masterclass in pareidolia, our brain's hardwired tendency to see familiar patterns in random shapes. The initial conditions were perfect for creating an anomaly, a distant object seen from one angle under the harsh, shadow-casting lunar light. Yet this straightforward explanation invites a deeper, more unsettling question. Does the fact that this one cube was an illusion mean that every anomaly is just a trick of the light? Or does it simply mean we must look closer, with better tools and more rigorous analysis, to separate the true signals from the noise? The rabbit-shaped rock may have closed one mystery, but it left a far more important one wide open. Deep within the winding canyons of the moon, a different kind of structure emerges from the shadows. These are the lunar rill spires, slender towers that rise like ancient pillars from the floors of long, narrow valleys. The Hadley Rill, visited by the Apollo 15 mission, provides some of the most striking examples. Here, the canyon walls slope down to the floor, and scattered across that floor are clusters of these sharp, vertical formations. They are not random boulders. They stand in distinct rows and groupings, their dark forms creating stark, pointed shadows against the lighter soil. High-resolution orbital imagery allows us to zoom in, revealing a crucial detail. The texture and color of these spires appear different from the surrounding canyon walls. They are darker and more rugged, suggesting they are made of a denser, more resilient material than the material that has eroded away around them. One of the leading geological theories attempts to explain them through a dramatic collapse. The idea is that these rills were once giant lava tubes, subterranean rivers of molten rock that flowed beneath the surface. When the lava drained away, it left behind a hollow ceiling. Over millions of years, sections of that ceiling collapsed, forming the rill we see today. The spires, then, could be the last remnants of that original ceiling, pillars of tougher rock that resisted the collapse and were left standing as everything else crumbled around them. We can see a similar, though smaller scale, process on Earth in lava caves in places like Iceland. Yet the scale of the lunar spires and their occasional alignment in near-perfect rows pushes this natural explanation to its limits. Could a random collapse really leave behind such orderly clusters? This visual ambiguity opens the door to a far more speculative idea. If you were to strip mine a subsurface layer, what would be left behind? The support pillars, the organized rows of spires within these canyons, bear an uncanny resemblance to the structural columns left in a terrestrial mine after the valuable ore has been extracted. Are we looking at the fossilized ruins of a colossal mining operation where some unknown civilization excavated the moon's interior, leaving only these stark pillars as evidence of their industry? The silent, shadowed canyons hold these spires in a perfect balance between geology and archaeology, leaving us to wonder if we are seeing the work of nature or the skeletal remains of a long-abandoned enterprise. The stark geometry of the Phobos monolith presents a puzzle that echoes right back to our own moon. This object, photographed by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, is a stark, rectangular slab standing upright on the tiny, potato-shaped moon of Mars. It rises from an otherwise featureless plane, a perfect geometric shape that casts a long, sharp shadow, its edges appearing unnaturally straight against the backdrop of space. If such a structure exists on a Martian moon, a world we have barely explored, then what similar artifacts might be hiding in plain sight on our own lunar companion, a world we have mapped in exquisite detail? The search for lunar counterparts to the Phobos monolith becomes a compelling new chapter in this mystery. Astronomers and independent researchers have begun scouring high-resolution images from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, hunting for any sign of similar solitary slabs. The most likely places to find them are not on the open plains, but in the permanently shadowed regions of polar craters. These are places where the sun never shines, deep, frigid basins that have been frozen in darkness for billions of years, untouched and unweathered by solar radiation. Imagine a computer-generated visualization panning across one of these dark craters. A simulated spotlight sweeps across the floor, illuminating a towering, black, rectangular monolith half buried in the ice. It stands in absolute silence, a perfect geometric intruder in a chaotic landscape. The implications of finding such an object, whether on Phobos or the moon, are staggering. If it is artificial, who placed it there? Was it a marker left by an ancient spacefaring civilization, a boundary stone in the cosmic wilderness? Could it be a communication device, a data storage unit holding information from a time before humanity, or even a piece of alien art, a sculpture placed for reasons we cannot fathom? The very existence of a single, intelligently designed monolith would force us to rewrite the history of our solar system. It would mean we are not the first to leave our mark on these worlds, and that the silent stones of the moon and Mars are not merely rocks but monuments. The lunar surface holds a record of impact spanning billions of years, a permanent archive of cosmic violence, yet some entries in this archive appear to have been erased. Across different missions, orbital cameras have captured the baffling phenomenon of disappearing craters. In one region, a distinct, well-defined crater was clearly visible in photographs from the Lunar Orbiter program. Years later, when a subsequent probe imaged the exact same location, the crater was simply gone. The landscape was smooth, as if the depression had been perfectly filled in. A side-by-side comparison of the before and after images creates a jarring disconnect. It is not a matter of poor resolution or different lighting angles. The feature itself has vanished without leaving a scar. The sheer scale of this makes a natural explanation profoundly difficult. For a landslide to fill a crater so completely and smoothly would require an immense amount of material moving with impossible precision. There are no signs of the slumping or the chaotic debris fields that such an event would inevitably produce. The surface is unnaturally pristine, as if the crater was never there at all. This leads to more speculative and frankly unsettling possibilities. Could some of these craters actually be entrances to vast subsurface complexes? What if, after being photographed, these openings were deliberately sealed, their massive doors closed and covered with a layer of regolith to hide all evidence of their existence? Another theory ventures into the realm of perception. Perhaps some crater observations were not of physical structures at all, but of incredibly sophisticated holographic projections. These massive illusions could have been used to mask underlying activity, and their eventual failure or deactivation would make the crater seem to disappear from one moment to the next. The evidence is in the photographs. We are left staring at two different versions of the same patch of lunar ground, one with a crater and one without, forced to confront a simple, staggering question. If the moon's face can change so completely, what else about it is not what it seems? Even the moon's profound silence is an illusion. For centuries, we have called it an airless body, a perfect vacuum where no breath of wind could ever stir the dust. But sensitive instruments have revealed a ghost in the machine, a whisper-thin and ever-changing shroud of gases that clings temporarily to the lunar surface. This is the lunar atmosphere anomaly, a scientific mystery that challenges the very definition of a dead world. Satellites have detected temporary, localized clouds of sodium and potassium, elements that appear to bloom in certain areas before dissipating back into the void. The leading explanation for this is a process called sputtering. The solar wind, a constant stream of charged particles from the sun, bombards the lunar soil. This impact can knock atoms loose from the surface, kicking them up into a temporary, wispy haze. It is a simple and elegant theory, but like so much about the moon, the full picture is far more complex. Observations have recorded gas releases that do not fit the sputtering model at all. These events are too sudden, too localized, and involve gases that are not easily explained by surface interactions alone. They point toward another, more intriguing possibility: internal outgassing. The idea that the moon might still be geologically active enough to vent gases from its deep interior is a revolutionary one. Imagine a data visualization of the lunar globe, with patches of color flaring to life in specific craters like Aristarchus and Plato. These are the same locations famed for centuries of transient lunar phenomena, the mysterious glows and obscurations reported by astronomers. The correlation is too strong to ignore. A sudden, localized venting of radioactive radon gas, for instance, could explain both a spectral signature of atmosphere and a brief, eerie glow on the surface. This creates a profound link between ancient observations and modern science, suggesting that the flickering lights and temporary clouds are different faces of the same active process. So what is stirring deep within the lunar core? Is it the slow, residual cooling of a molten interior, finally releasing the last trapped breaths of its formation? Or could these gas releases be the exhaust from something else entirely, a sign of activity that is not geological, but something we have yet to conceive? The ghostly atmosphere reminds us that the moon is not a static museum piece, but a world with its own hidden, breathing life. The moon holds pockets of profound silence, not just the absence of sound, but the active suppression of our own voices. Certain regions, most notably the vast dark plain of the Mercurium, act as radio silence zones. During multiple missions, both Soviet and American, spacecraft passing over these specific areas experienced sudden, inexplicable communication blackout. The signal would be perfectly clear, then as the craft crossed an invisible boundary, it would dissolve into static, only to return just as suddenly once the zone was passed. This was not a simple equipment malfunction. It happened repeatedly, and it was geographically precise. If you were to trace the trajectory of a lunar probe on a map, you would see its path cross the Mare Crisium, and right at that point the data stream would flatline. The official explanation points towards geology. Perhaps these basins contain massive deposits of certain minerals like iron-rich ilmenite that are exceptionally efficient at absorbing radio waves. The theory suggests that the unique composition of the soil in these zones acts like a sponge, soaking up our transmissions before they can escape back to Earth. Yet, this seemingly logical answer is fraught with problems. The rest of the Moon is made of broadly similar material, and no other large regions cause such a complete and predictable signal loss. Why would the absorption be so absolute, and why would it be confined to such distinct geometric areas? The limitations of the mineral theory open the door to more extraordinary possibilities. Could these zones be the site of natural energy vortices, strange focal points of lunar magnetism or gravitational anomaly that disrupt electromagnetic energy? Or does the explanation lie in active technology? The chilling speculation is that these are areas protected by some form of automated jamming system, a defensive field designed to create pockets of radio silence, perhaps to hide something beneath the surface from our prying signals. When you see a mission map with those sharp, red lines marking the communication dropouts, the pattern feels intentional. It suggests that the Moon is not merely a rock, but a world with designated quiet areas, enforcing a silence that we are not meant to break. The final anomaly pushes speculation to its very limits, suggesting the Moon itself is a hollowed-out world threaded with impossible architecture. Some images reveal long, tubular structures snaking just beneath the surface, their material appearing smooth and vitreous like tunnels made of dark glass. These features seem partially submerged, with only their curved tops visible above the regolith, creating the impression of colossal, transparent pipelines frozen in the lunar crust. The scientific foundation for this idea lies in lunar lava tubes. On a younger, volcanically active Moon, rivers of molten rock flowed beneath a hardened surface crust. When the lava drained away, it left behind vast, empty caverns. In places where the ceiling partially collapsed, we might be seeing the remains of these tubes, their inner walls smoothed by the passage of ancient magma. These natural formations present an incredible opportunity for future exploration. They offer ready-made shelters from the Moon's harsh environment, protecting against solar radiation, micrometeorites, and extreme temperature swings. A cross-section animation could illustrate this perfectly, showing a translucent, arching tube buried under the soil. Inside, the environment is stable and protected, a perfect underground haven for a future lunar base, with astronauts walking along a smooth, glassy floor under a ceiling that glows with a faint, reflected Earthlight. But what if some of these tubes are not natural at all? Their sheer scale and occasional perfection of form have led to a more radical theory. Could these be manufactured structures, the remnants of a planetary-scale engineering project? Imagine an animation peeling back the lunar surface to reveal a network of these transparent tunnels, connecting different regions like a subterranean highway system. Their glass-like composition might not be a geological accident, but a deliberately engineered material, strong enough to hold a vacuum and transparent to allow for the management of light or energy. Were these tubes used to transport materials across the Moon, safe from the vacuum above? Could they have served as vast living quarters, their transparent walls offering a continuous, breathtaking view of the star-filled sky outside? This theory proposes that we are not looking at caves, but at the ruins of an integrated infrastructure, the skeletal framework of a world that was once actively used and inhabited. It is the ultimate expression of the lunar mystery, transforming the Moon from a simple rock into a complex, engineered artifact. We are left staring at those ghostly, glassy lines on the surface, wondering if we are seeing the bones of a natural world or the elegant, abandoned blueprint of something profoundly alien. This growing catalogue of anomalies inevitably leads to a deeply unsettling question. Why, with all our advanced technology and lunar missions, do we not have definitive answers? A persistent theory has taken root, suggesting that the silence from official agencies is not a lack of knowledge, but a deliberate policy of secrecy. The argument for a cover-up hinges on a series of puzzling events and omissions that, when strung together, form a compelling narrative of concealment. Proponents point to the infamous case of the missing Apollo telemetry tapes. These were the original high-quality data recordings from the lunar missions, containing the raw, unprocessed video and scientific information. NASA itself admitted that the tapes, thousands of them, were erased and reused in the 1990s due to a shortage of magnetic tape, an act described as a tragic bureaucratic error. To many, the erasure of humanity's greatest exploratory achievement seems not just careless but inconceivably so. It is the ultimate disposal of the original evidence. Then there is the abrupt and premature end of the Apollo program itself. We went from multiple successful lunar landings to a complete cancellation, with several planned missions left on the drawing board. The official reason was a lack of public interest and overwhelming cost. Yet the conspiracy theory asks, did they find something up there that made further visits too risky or too revealing? The motivations for such a cover-up are theorized to be profound. One is the prevention of global social panic. The discovery of a non-human intelligence, or even its ancient ruins, would shatter established religious, scientific, and social institutions, potentially leading to uncontrollable chaos. Another motive could be the desire to maintain a technological monopoly. If certain lunar artifacts represent advanced physics or energy sources, the nation that controls that knowledge controls the world. The arguments against a cover-up, however, are equally powerful. The sheer scale of such a conspiracy would be impossible to maintain. Thousands of scientists, engineers, and astronauts across multiple countries and decades would have to remain silent, a feat of secrecy never before accomplished in human history. The erased tapes, while regrettable, occurred during an era of budget cuts and poor archival management, a mundane tragedy rather than a sinister plot. The end of Apollo was a political decision, fueled by shifting national priorities and the immense financial drain of the Vietnam War. Furthermore, modern missions from Europe, India, Japan, and China are now mapping the moon. Is it plausible that every single world government is part of the same agreement to hide the truth? The debate ultimately rests on a choice between two narratives. One is a story of institutional incompetence, budget constraints, and the slow, grinding pace of science. The other is a story of ultimate secrecy, where humanity is being protected from a truth it is not yet ready to face. The real cover-up may not be one of hidden facts, but of our own inability to accept that some mysteries refuse to yield easy answers. We stand on the brink of a new golden age of lunar discovery. The silent mysteries that have taunted us for generations may finally meet their match in the coming decade. NASA Artemis program aims to return humans to the moon, this time to stay, while a fleet of new robotic scouts from space agencies and private companies will map the surface with a clarity we have never seen before. Imagine rovers equipped with ground-penetrating radar able to peer dozens of meters beneath the soil, or orbital cameras so powerful they could spot a pebble from miles above. These are the tools that will turn blurry anomalies into concrete data. Some of our oldest puzzles are now prime targets for investigation. The permanently shadowed interior of the Shackleton crater, for instance, is a cosmic deep freeze that may have preserved unimaginable artifacts for billions of years, safe from solar radiation. A rover could descend into that eternal darkness, its headlamps cutting through the black to reveal what has been hidden there. Then there is the brilliant, enigmatic Rayner Gamma swirl. A future mission could land directly on its bright, patterned soil, taking physical samples to determine once and for all if its magnetism is a natural freak of comet impacts or the lingering signature of something far more profound. This new chapter is not just for government agencies. Private companies are planning their own lunar landers and orbiters, creating an unprecedented flood of data. This opens the door wider than ever for citizen scientists and amateur astronomers. Your observations from a backyard telescope, when combined with this new orbital intelligence, could pinpoint the next transient flash or strange shadow. The community of anomaly hunters is about to get the most powerful toolkit in history. Concept art for this future is breathtaking, showing sleek rovers traversing canyons beside towering spires and illuminated bases nestled near the glassy domes of Mare Crisium. We are no longer just observers staring up at a distant enigma. We are about to become explorers walking its plains, touching its strange structures, and peeling back the layers of its greatest secrets. The moon has kept its silence for eons, but its quiet time is almost over. These 25 anomalies form a mosaic of profound mystery. We have seen towering spires that pierce the void, geometric shapes carved with impossible precision, and lights that dance in the eternal dark. We have witnessed landscapes that shift and craters that vanish, ghostly atmospheres that bloom and radio signals that die. This is not the simple, dead rock of textbook science. This is a world whispering with secrets. While some of these puzzles will surely yield to natural explanations, the collective weight of the evidence is undeniable. The sheer number and variety of these enigmas, from the architectural ruins to the dynamic phenomena, demand that we keep our minds open. The greatest error would be to stop looking, to stop questioning the silent companion that orbits our world. So the next time you see the moon hanging in the night sky, look at it not as a familiar face, but as a frontier. See the subtle shades of its seas and the bright points of its craters, and remember the strange structures and unexplained events that hint at a history we are only beginning to uncover. We want to know what you think. Share your own theories and favorite anomalies in the comments below. If you are fascinated by the universe's hidden stories, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the cosmos's greatest puzzles. The final secret is this: the moon is not silent, it is waiting, and in its ancient cratered face, a billion secrets still sleep in the cold and the quiet.